The new presenting sponsor of OnEducation is Participate. Podcasting at its core is about telling stories. At OnEducation, we've been sharing the stories of students and educators for 2 years now. That's why we're so thrilled to have Participate as our new presenting sponsor. In this time, we'll work with our friends at Participate to highlight many of the amazing communities there, in the hopes you'll seek them out and join the conversation. To learn more about Participate, visit participate.com. It has felt like forever for me. Like, this has felt like a new lifetime.
This is like the longest 6 weeks of our lives. Welcome to OnEducation, part of the On Podcast Media Network. My name is Mike Washman.
And I'm Glenn Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We will discuss the state on remote teaching and learning, debate whether we should be posting our old high school graduation pics on social media, and our guest this week is educator, author, and speaker Mandy Froehlich.
I was telling Mandy, because we just spoke to her earlier, that I totally have up on my tabs. I'm doing research on weighted blankets. and we were talking a little, I wanted to save this conversation because I'm totally discovering this for the first time right now.
Yes.
That this is apparently a thing. It's a blanket.
Yes.
That is weighted.
Heavy.
It's heavy.
Okay.
And it's supposed to like hug you. That's like the scientific justification that they use too, is that
really?
it's meant to like replicate being comforted,
held. Yeah.
And that the psychology behind that when you're sleeping is supposed to be, a thing.
Well, if people don't know, you're having huge issues sleeping. You are always a very light sleeper. Well, by light sleeper, I mean you usually don't sleep, well, number one, very well, but the number of hours have always been a concern.
Yeah.
So you've always had different things you've done to try to make, to adjust, like try to get as many hours in as you actually can of good sleep. But here recently has been worse. And you
Much
think,
worse.
I mean, a lot of people probably can empathize as far as maybe not in the extreme situation that you're in, Mike, but is it partially because of all this, I mean, of what the current situation that we're in? The stress levels there, stress levels of everything kind of culminating in one.
It has to be, even though without I don't want to belabor on it much, but I'm one of the very, very lucky few whose personal
Passions.
life,
Mm-hmm.
my personal situations have actually improved in the last 2 or 3 months. As opposed for example, finances. I was actually saying to my wife, in our past, probably our biggest family stressor has been money.
Sure.
And this is a thing that everyone is dealing with, or a lot of people are dealing with right now.
Yes.
Well, I'm one of the very small amount of people whose financial situations are actually improving significantly during this time. And so, something that would, I said to Cheryl, I said, listen, if we were dealing with some of the money problems that we had dealt with in the past during this time,
wow,
I don't know what
Crazy.
we would have,
stress levels.
I have insane, endless amounts of empathy for people who are going through, I am really concerned about the economic situation.
Yeah, it's going to be devastating.
I've been thinking about it a lot. And I've been this close to being super hot takey about it, and I'm trying to think about the big picture and stuff like that. But the reality is that there are millions of people losing their jobs,
Yes.
and the not to get hyper dark about this, but the death rate from this pandemic cannot be just solely related to the actual medical condition, because I can guarantee you we're going to have casualties, for lack of better words, as it relates to the economic crisis that the whole world is in and going to be under in some way, shape, or form for, let's be real about it, folks, the next probably 2 years. We're going to be in some sort of situation related to what we're dealing with right now. So, I don't know. Like I've started a new job, and I'm working very hard at that as well. But I think there's been some external things. So I have about like 4 or 5 sleeping disorders. So I kind of like go through a checklist of all of the things that are like X factors. So I was telling you just before we went on air, I literally bought a new mattress.
Yeah.
It just arrived tonight. Yeah. And just like I'm going to sleep on it for the first time tonight. So I'm like excited because it's like, if this is the thing that's been bothering me, then I've just solved my problem. Right.
Yeah. That would be great.
So new mattress, buddy.
Hopefully
right there.
Just some amazing sleep tonight.
I can only hope so. The other thing that I have sleep apnea. So I have like, if this is TMI, hit that 30-second fast forward and we're fine. But listen, I have sleep apnea and I have a mask. I don't travel with it because it's just a pain in the butt. My apnea isn't like strong, like super dangerous, so I don't travel with all of this stuff. But one of the things that I have never been really good at is keeping it kind of clean and stuff like that, because it's also a giant pain in the butt to do that. But you can buy like machines where you can put like the whole system in a machine and it cleans it for you automatically. So I bought one of those. so I've only had that for like two or 3 days. So I'm kind of like
to buy your way out of this sleeping problems.
Dude, I mean,
the next thing is the weighted blanket too.
And so the next thing, no joke, the next thing is the weighted blanket.
If anyone out there has the next thing in line after that, yeah. So there's quite a list.
Yeah, exactly. So like don't like. I appreciate everyone who said, take melatonin. I eat melatonin like candy, as Glenn knows. Like, you got to give me like 20 milligrams of melatonin just to stop thinking at night.
And you're not like me either, Mike, where you don't, drink a whole bunch of caffeine, like right before
I have one coffee in the morning.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you're not a caffeine guy, so you're not stimulating yourself in that manner either. No. So
I have one coffee. I'm usually done it by 7:30 in the morning, and that's the only coffee I drink all day. I even drink like a lot less pop now too, and I'm eating a lot less sugar, like a lot of diet stuff, like a lot of diet sodas, pops, and sugar free. Like, I'm drinking a lot of water. Like, I'm doing all the right things, friends. Like, I'm exercising. And I'm still getting like 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night. So,
something's there. Hopefully
it's bad.
Hopefully it gets solved soon, because 2 or 3 is horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
I am, though, solving some of my problems. Well, actually, I'm probably not, because I'm playing the hell out of this game right now.
I was going to say, while you're staying awake all of these hours, you're probably investing all of this time into this game. Satisfactory.
Satisfactory is the new, so if you've listened to OnEducation for any extended period of time, you've heard us talk about Farm Together.
Farm Together, yeah.
You've heard us talk a lot about Oxygen Not Included.
Yes.
And the new Farm Together / Oxygen Not Included. Even though you didn't get really on the Oni bus, but you definitely were on the Farm Together train for a little while.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, yes.
Is Satisfactory. This game is so good, folks. But it is very I dream about supply chain management now.
So we may have figured out what the culprit is, everybody.
Trying to figure out how to run a coal line around a power plant so that you can feed a smelter, so that you can make steel bars, so that you can make reinforced frames.
Wow.
That's my problem that I'm dealing with right now.
A lot of logistics there. And this is, everybody, a video game.
My mind is full of conveyor belts.
Yeah. It is so, so cool. Talk about video games. You guys did or are working still on the Participate Gone Home, the Gone Home game, and it's a book study. And I knew you had, I jumped on when you had Paul Darvasi and you had Funny Man,
John Spike.
John Spike. I don't know why I couldn't actually just say it. John Spike. And of course, Steve Isaacs and yourself.
Yeah.
And I was watching you play through the game as experiencing it for the first time. So tell us about it.
So first off, you've been listening. If you've listened to the podcast, you would have noticed that you heard a new ad at the top of the show. We haven't even talked about that yet.
Oh, baby.
Participate is now the presenting sponsor of OnEducation. It's pretty exciting, folks.
It's very exciting.
So, and now, what's great about Participate being the presenting sponsor is that I work there, which means that, one of the things that we've always been looking for in our presenting sponsor is deep collaboration.
Yes.
And we've not been super successful with deep collaboration with our presenting sponsors thus far, for better or for worse. I work at Participate.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. So we're really excited. There's a lot of plans in place, and we're going to roll out some of these things super quick. But we really want to share the stories of what's really great that's happening in these communities, these companies, these nonprofits that have communities on Participate and are really doing amazing work, and highlighting those so that when you're listening, you go, oh, this is something I'm interested in. I'm going to go on Participate and check it out and hopefully join that community and be involved in that community. We're really excited to share those stories. And so one of the things that's happened is that we've launched, in addition to all the communities that we roll up and help people with related to their nonprofit, their organization, their community, their school district, their company, whatever, we also build what are called public communities. And these are communities that are tied to kind of interest spaces that, I think, the staff of Participate have interest in. Working on, but also just kind of general broad spaces for large groups of people to collaborate and communicate and work together on. And one of the newest ones that we've launched is a game-based learning community. And we're really excited about it. It's taking off, and we're hoping that folks are listening to this right now and say, I have an interest in games-based learning. I'm going to go to that community. I'm going to join it. And you'll see that, Steve Isaacs is there, Paul Darvasi's there, John Spike, Glenn Irvin is there, and we're launching a games-based learning podcast. We're going to talk more about that next week because that's pretty darn exciting too. And so one of the things we're doing related to this specific games-based learning community is a game study. So there's book studies where you take a book and you read it together with a group of people and you talk about it. Mm-hmm. So we're going to play a game and we're going to talk about it. We're talking about it live on Twitch at twitch.tv/inside participate. You can go there and watch us every Thursday at 3:00. Right now it's Thursdays at 3. You're going to watch me play the game with Paul and John and Steve, so the four of us, and we're going to be talking the entire time we're playing. And then we go to the Participate game-based learning community, and there's a discussion where people can reflect, they can weigh in, they can tell us their thoughts on the playthrough, their own personal playthrough, because we're obviously still encouraging people to play as well.
Yes.
So, if you have Gone Home or if you want to go buy it, it's not very expensive. I think it's $15 on the Epic Game Store. Join us. We're just getting started. One of the really cool, exciting things that's coming up real soon is by the time this comes out, you won't you'll be able to catch it on YouTube. But what we're we're having the co-lead developer for Gone Home is joining the live stream this Thursday, tomorrow. So like I'm a little bit nervous because they're going to be playing Gone Home for the developer of Gone Home. She's going to be watching me play her game.
She'll be excited. Yes.
So I am pretty excited about it. I'm pretty excited about the Participate presenting sponsorship. I'm excited about the communities. I'm excited to start sharing stories about what these communities are doing, and it kind of all works together. So yeah, Satisfactory, Gone Home.
Nice.
A little bit of Oxygen not included. Again, a lot of Minecraft. I got another big announcement coming up next week to share about Minecraft. But you tell me about Mr. Mercedes.
So if you know me and you've listened to the podcast, you know that I hate scary movies. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that could also include anything that has like jump scares or those kinds of things in it, gross things in it. So this show, I'd say, would qualify in all of those areas because it's based upon a book series by Stephen King.
Okay.
So it is a kind of a crime novel, about let's call it a serial killer, kind of that would be a good description of it. And anyway, my wife's a big fan of Stephen King. She's an author herself, and she just super passionate about anything Stephen King related. Had heard of this. This is like, it's not a newer movie at all. And now it has show. Now it has about 3 seasons or so. But she had heard about it. We're like, let's go ahead and start it. We have some time in the evenings now. My goodness, if you've never watched this before, it is well worth getting it. We just ended up buying the whole season and just taking the risk of it. And it is phenomenal. I mean, right from the beginning through the actual final episode, which usually, those are kind of like letdowns, those final episodes of a series. This is fantastic all the way through. It is great characters, great storytelling. Nicole read, obviously, these stories and said that they stick to the characters and the things very well. And the stuff that they decided to kind of take their own license, she said, was very well done. There were some characters they added as far as in the thing and as far as in the show that were very well done. But Mr. Mercedes, highly recommended. So, to anybody that's out there, it's freaking awesome. It's great.
Mr. Mercedes. I don't like scary movies either, so I won't be touching it regardless of your high recommend. I'm not going there. I'm not sleeping, folks.
Yeah, you don't need this one. Yeah. No. First episode is brutal. You don't want to watch.
No.
Let's get you some sleep first.
Yeah. So this is funny, and I don't have a strong take on this, but some of our friends
it's interesting.
Have. Should we be posting our high school graduation pics? First off, no one wants to see what I look like when I was 18.
I do, though. I was just thinking about that. So anyway, the controversy is supposedly the reason why people were posting their pics. Let's start with that. If we were going to be, like stating a reason, I believe, and this is kind of what people have been stating, is they wanted to do it in honor of the class of 2020, whose graduation may or may not happen at the time that it thinks. Though I also, don't you think though, Mike, that people are going to, by people, I mean the schools are going to make extraordinary efforts to do something for all of these kids all over the nation? Well, I think we're going to do some, I don't know what it is yet. Have you seen this trending on Twitter, by the way? Sorry, I'm going off topic here. This Barack Obama thing. Have you seen this trending? No. I don't know if you have, but where he's going to deliver a virtual commencement address to all the class of 2020. Have you heard of this thing? Oh,
that's nice.
I don't know if it's really going to happen or if this is just a giant rumor that then got circulated on Twitter and now it's trending. But it's really trending super high. If it did happen, that's fantastic. I 100% for that. But anyway, it was kind of a way to honor them. Let's laugh at ourselves a little bit, whatever it might be. So some of our friends, for example, John Meehan, didn't appreciate the posting of this because he said it was, I think, like a
throws
negative.
it in their face.
Kind of a negative, throws it in their face, kind of those types of things.
And it's not making them feel better; it's making them feel worse.
And I think some of the takes are funny on it because, number one, the best takes are our students aren't on Facebook, number one, which is a great take. I love that take. It's like, yeah, they don't use that thing. They don't really care if you post your dumb
Facebook
high school pics. It's us. It's our generation and older people than us, that are using Facebook as far as their preferred social media platform. So I thought that was kind of a funny take on it too. And of course, some people are just like, it's not that serious, It's not something so, and what we do, obviously, when we knew this was approaching and me and you were talking about this, the number one thing that we were concerned about is our kids' needs, both their physical needs, right? Food, those types of things, safety, and then their emotional needs, so social, emotional, kind of the connections that they might miss, those things, and making sure that we could reach out to them and connect with them as best as we possibly could. And we're still there. We're still doing those types of things. And in this case, we have this class of 2020, and it's sad. I empathize for that. I feel bad for them as far as not being able to go ahead and celebrate the things that normal high school seniors get to celebrate, which would be prom, any kind of culminating athletic or other types of activities, their culminating activities that they were going to do. And then, of course, their graduation. But I just have a hard time believing, and I know that my principal, for example, is already brainstorming about how are we going to honor them the best way that we can. And that may have to be that we do a graduation like sometime later. You know what I mean? Like 6 months down the road, we may have to go ahead and get back down and then be able to get back together. We may need to do a combination of a physical graduation sometime later and something virtual that's special for them, for them to be able to commemorate them. I just thought it was a little bit hardcore to think that people were like putting it in kids' faces or, that this was such a serious thing. I actually just enjoy looking at people's graduation pictures, and I'm going to
goofy Matt Joseph looks.
I'm going to post mine. Yeah, Matt. Oh, dude, Matt Joseph is like a.
No, he was a stud in high school.
He's like a supermodel in high school.
Yeah.
He's like making fun of himself, and he was like
he's
a
gonna
character.
Laugh when he hears this.
He's like a character off of a '90s teenage show, a Beverly Hills 90210. He could have been a character. I mean, I'm looking at him going like, "What are you?" It's like. Don't make fun of yourself. I'm like, geez, you're looking good.
I don't have
a
strong. I think so. I think there's also an interesting cultural thing here because just graduation and stuff like that is just not as big a deal. Like your senior year. Like I didn't care, and a lot of people I knew didn't care. Like, give me my diploma and let me just get the hell out of here, kind of thing.
There is those people that feel that way too. Yeah,
it's just not as big a thing. I have no strong opinion on this, really. Shockingly, for like maybe this is like the only time where I'm not weighing in on one side or another.
One way or the other.
I just listen. Post your damn high school pic if you want to. You look pretty dumb.
I'm going to post mine. I have good hair.
You'll have hair.
Yeah.
Which is funny. So that'll be traumatizing a little. I was really skinny until I was about 22, like six pack skinny. I was in good shape too, but I was goofy looking. No, not happening. So yeah, I mean, but post your picture if you want. Maybe if it makes kids feel better, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry if it doesn't. Again,
it's not.
They're not
meant
on
to
Facebook
be.
anyways.
And it's not meant to be. Yeah, to burn them or anything else like that. Yeah,
the intent.
The intent is not malicious. Yes, it's not mean.
So we have spent a lot of time talking about remote learning, about distance learning. those two terms are fairly synonymous, or at least they're the terms people are using to associate with what's going on right now. But I really do actually like this reframe, this idea of, I mean, this isn't remote learning. This is emergency learning. This is trauma teaching. This is pandemic time education. It's not the same as what a robust, effective, remote learning situation could possibly look like.
Yeah.
This is not the model, please, in almost any situation for how this would work if it was working without, a virus spreading around the world, killing everybody.
Yes.
And I think we just need to reframe it that way, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I really like Phil Pulley, our friend, educator in Illinois, wrote an article that he basically, I like the term that he's using. He says, this is not distance learning. This is definitely not online e-learning at its most effectiveness, as you just finished describing it. This is, he called it educational triage. And that's actually what it is, because we are just trying to do our best. Mm-hmm. And he actually talks about kind of the inequities that we've described, both in technology and in economic statuses and accesses, and not being able to go ahead and the different types of family situations that you may be in, and everything else in between. And basically he's talking about how first we have to address those Maslow needs, and we just finished describing those things where your security and being able to go ahead and find a good meal and just having a safe environment first before we go ahead and do anything with blooms. And then finally, the last layer of that would be technology and those components that you actually learned there. So it's kind of this line. And we would never just totally just throw ourselves into this situation. And like I said it on the podcast before, we had an opportunity in Minnesota to have 2 weeks to train to prepare for this thing.
Yeah.
And though that was a significant amount of time, because we've never had 2 weeks to do anything, as far as the thing goes, you would never throw anything together in 2 weeks and then try to bust something out like that, as far as such a gigantic district-wide,
to every
school-wide.
student.
Yeah, and then try to say, yeah, this is going to work and be successful. You wouldn't do it intentionally. You would just do it because you had to. You were going to put a plan in place that was going to be the best plan you could be able to implement for what you currently have and everything, both the training, the technology, to be able to access and all those kinds of things. So I think it's really important too, because I have a bad feeling. You know how you were talking about what happens after, Mike, in the article that you wrote, that you authored there for Participate, that has to do what happens after all this. I have this bad feeling that some people are going to take the worst of what happened here and then apply it to online and distance learning. You know what I mean? So cherry pick the things that happened only because we didn't have time to prepare. This is not the set of circumstances that anybody would have wanted, like you just finished describing, a pandemic around the world. And then cherry pick those things and then say, this is why online learning or e-learning or distance learning or remote learning or whatever it might be doesn't work. And I think that we immediately need to put an end to that and say, no, that you can't equate those two things. The only thing that we can equate is that we can learn some lessons from this time. And I think that's what you were describing in your article, correct? As far as there are some things that we can learn and then apply it to the fall or to the years to come.
So in addition to, I love the framing of Maslow before Bloom. It really, I'll tell you, it puts it into a whole other perspective these days, which is crazy. And, thinking about even some of that stuff as we move forward. And what happens, in the future, what happens next, and what happens in, well, maybe, let's say September, when we start going back to our schools. And I can't help but wonder if people are going to be afraid to go back to schools. And our friend Corey Graham posted a Twitter poll that got quite a few votes. Pretty good sample, 278 votes. And the question was simple. If your school opens up this fall, would you feel comfortable / safe going back to teaching in a building? Please feel free to comment. 52% said yes, they would feel comfortable. 19% said no, and 28% said no, but I would still go. What do you make of this?
That's where I voted. I put no, but I would still go. I'm still uncertain. Everything's so up in the air. And a lot of it has to do with just obviously some of it is political. Some of it is just really, truly the unknown. We really just don't know enough. And our decisions as communities, as governments, as institutions, the decisions that we make, including obviously this kind of stay-at-home thing that we're doing right now, and then whenever the decision gets made that we should, fully go back, kind of go back, but both to schools and to work in general, all of those things are going to make a huge impact. And it's so uncertain. That's what's so funny is when a lot of people, your pundits get out there and then they're making comments about this or that. We really don't know. And I would rather err on the side of caution than anything else. Though I'm telling you right now, I would love to go back and just, to the normal and have my kids be able to go back and be back with their friends and do all the things, and me to go back to actual physically going to work. But I put no, but I would still go because at this moment in time, I'm still super uncertain. I think we're so early in this whole process, and the way that I hear the experts in these pandemics and in studying of these diseases of this type of virus, they're uncertain, and their uncertainty definitely carries a lot of like, oh God, we need to tread lightly before we make these big moves of, let's all go back, let's just see what happens, because the results could be devastating, and that's what I don't want to see. For my own and my family's safety, obviously, but for all my community and my and all the kids at our schools, for them too. Yeah,
I know that Isaac is missing his friends and his school community. He loves his teacher this year. I think he's missing her because she was really nice to she was a good teacher, like in the classroom, good with the relationships and spending time with them. She had a call with them on Google Hangouts or something the first week they were back, and everyone it was a gong show, but it was like the best kind of gong show, you know what I mean? Like they just loved the chance to be in a chat with her online and stuff like that. So it was really, really cool. He had a really good class this year. I was lucky. I've done it a couple years where I've had the chance to go in and teach his class.
Yeah.
I've done it a couple times, I think in grade 4, and then didn't last year, but in grade 6 this year. And he had a really good class this year. So it's a little disappointing now. That being said, listen, I think that the X factor in this answer is whether you have confidence in your district to implement strong, smart kind of safety protocols, regulations, procedures for, like, you can't just go back to school and just like nothing ever happened. There's a really good article. I'll try to find it for the show notes from a writer for The Atlantic who was talking about how, like, this doesn't end in September when people go back to school. This is like a 2-year thing, folks, where, life isn't just you're not going to just snap your fingers and be back to the way things were. There's going to be years, there's easily, 8 months before we even have a vaccine, and then easily 6 months before there's herd immunity after the vaccine. So we're still talking like a year and a half at least.
Crazy.
Before we feel confident in the fact that, that the pack can, keep kind of the vulnerable safe.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And I don't know. I think that if I was a teacher and going back into a classroom, I just have a lot of questions about what you're doing to keep us safe.
Yeah.
What you're doing to keep me safe, what you're doing to keep the kids safe, and what are you doing to keep my family safe, who I have to go back home to. Because the problem that you have is that you then become a vector for your family.
Big time. Yeah.
Right.
That's
because
exactly what it is.
all of those kids go home to their 20 families, 25 families, 30 families, for God's sake. And you don't know, and then you don't know where all of those people in those families have been and who they've seen and who they've talked to. But then they all come back to class the next day. And so you become, and then you bring that home with you.
Yep.
And so I would just need to be sure that I worked at a district that, there's districts that talk about them caring about their teachers, and then there's districts that actually do. And we've seen very clearly the difference between the two. I called it. I swear to God, I called it right at the start of this. I wrote a tweet that got it went all over the place. But we're seeing the districts that care and the districts that don't, and the districts that thought about how they were dealing with this and the districts that didn't plan. And those districts are going to be the same ones that when you go back to school are not going to have your best interest potentially in mind. It's just the way it is. I'm sorry, but it's the absolute truth. And so I would be really, really concerned if I was in one of those districts. And then if I was in a district that seems to know what they're doing and care about their staff, then I would be more confident. Is that fair?
And in the United States, I would say, to add to the point there of what you're describing, at the higher level, the state governments, especially with the way that the federal government is kind of passing the buck to the states to make the big decisions, that really is where all of the decision making will take place. When do we actually go back will be made at the state level. And that's crazy if you think about it. That's so insane. Each state, I lived on the border of for 13 years between Minnesota and Wisconsin, Mike, and it was like, literally you crossed the bridge and you were in Wisconsin, and there was schools on both sides, obviously, of the things, and we had interactions. We even had athletic and activities that we did, across the state lines. I can't see how each state, depending upon the person, the people that are in charge, are going to make this huge decision on the behalf of their constituents. Mm-hmm. That's not a decision that's just being made nationwide. So it's so, I don't know, it's so crucial. And I hope that, obviously I can sense it as far as in Minnesota, we have a guy that was a former teacher, and you can tell that he has the number one interest is of his citizens, specifically and also the kids, the students. That's their safety is his ultimate main concern. Though he is interested in, obviously, in business and the economic impact that you were describing earlier, because it's humongous and devastating. The safety of the citizens is number one, and then those other factors as he actually goes through. But that's not everybody, and there's 50 different decision makers that are going to be making those decisions, at least for us. So it's really going to be interesting and also freaky come fall to see who goes back. Like, and actually I think some schools still haven't, and we haven't canceled for the rest of the year though. So that itself will be a conversation for us to have in the next few weeks. Those of you guys that end up going back to school, we want to talk to you. And I'm talking about this year. If you go back to school this year and that's going to be the plan, please contact us, because we want to we want to know how the decision was made and what are you guys going to do? You know, are you going to practice physical distancing away from each other? You know, how are you going to do that? It's crazy.
Might happen in Texas in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it could.
Oh, boy. Well, listen, Bloom's needs.
Yes.
Oh, it's going to all come back to Bloom's needs at this point, I guess. Speaking of Bloom's needs, when we come back, we're gonna spend some time laughing and talking with our very good friend Mandy Froehlich. So stay tuned.
OnEducation is brought to you by GoGuardian. GoGuardian helps thousands of K-12 school districts maximize the learning potential of every student by providing solutions that help enable productive and safe digital learning. GoGuardian's products help educators identify learning patterns, protect students from harmful and distracting content, and support mental health. To support schools during their remote learning transition, GoGuardian is offering free access to their entire product suite until the end of the school year. To learn more about GoGuardian and download free resources about remote learning, visit GoGuardian.com.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Our guest this week is a prolific author. I love that word. Consultant, speaker, and a great friend of the pod, Mandy Froehlich. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It's one of my favorite podcasts.
I did say your name right, sure. Did I not? I wanted to make sure I said your name right.
He paused.
You did. Nailed it.
So excited about that. Even it's baby steps right now. Everything is just mini victories. Is what I'm clinging to in my life. So, hey, what have you been up to? What's going on with you? How are things? How's your health? How's everyone doing in Wisconsin?
Well, Wisconsin, it's been a 25 degrees, a steady 25 degrees for the last month. So that's been really fun, because when you say we're homebound, we're actually homebound, and you guys are in Canada and Minnesota, so you understand. But I did some webinars for a district in Florida today where they're like, oh, it's so warm. And I'm like, oh, that's amazing for you. We're just sitting on our couch playing Mario Kart for the last 6 hours, but that's fantastic that you can go outside. We haven't been able to do a whole lot. I was sick for a little while. They claimed I had the virus. They kind of tested me all around for everything else, and everything came back negative. And so they said, well, you have all of the symptoms, so we're pretty sure that you have it, but they weren't going to hospitalize me, so they didn't waste a test on me. And if it was what they said it was god awful. It was absolutely terrible. And so it took about a month to recover from that. And I'm just finally coming back. And so I've been kind of absent from social media a little bit and things, just trying to get healthy. But, so yeah, trying to play catch up now, because it's not like work actually stops. So.
Right.
No, it doesn't.
No, definitely not. It's funny that at this point, almost everybody knows somebody or has been in contact with somebody, or, can like have a conversation with someone who knows someone who's had the virus. So it's really spreading. Like, we've had scares in our house. All of our kids got sick in the last couple weeks. 2 weeks ago, I guess. And it's a scary when your kids get sick. Now it's like it was terrifying to me.
Sure.
And it's funny because we texted while you were sick, and I can imagine how scary it was, and I was concerned. I've been texting friends and just checking in on people, and it's a wild time. But you have been doing. I did notice that you've been doing this coffee EDU stuff, and I wanted you to share that out so that people can at least jump in on it if they're interested. So tell us what you do in. I guess you're doing this in the mornings. I assume that's when you drink coffee, right?
Yeah, well, sometimes at 2:00 in the afternoon, but most normal people do it in the morning. And I appreciated you checking up on me as well when I was sick. That was definitely a highlight. So I do appreciate that. The coffee EDU started literally because I had not really talked to anybody or been in contact with anyone, and I was so flippin' lonely. So it didn't matter, even though I had my kids around me or whatever, it was, I just needed adult conversation and needed to say something, have the kind of people around me who lift me up and who want to talk about education and are kind of on the same wavelength with that and just have those kind of conversations. And so I just put it out there and, people joined, and it's been some same people each week, some different people, but it's been really a lot of fun. Sometimes we talk about education, sometimes we don't. A lot of discussion about just what's going on in your area with being locked down or homebound, and comparing notes kind of for that. So it's just something I'm doing for now to help ease some of the isolation and loneliness for people. And so it's been really good. Usually it's been on Wednesdays at 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. This week it had to be changed to tomorrow because I had webinars to do. So it's tomorrow, Thursday, but usually it's on Wednesday, 9:30.
Nice. That's awesome. And so one of the conversations that I'm interested in your thoughts on revolves around not necessarily what's happening now, because I think that we've really, exhausted the conversation about what we're doing now, and I'm done a little bit with it. I'm definitely thinking a lot about where we go from here and what happens next. I just wrote a blog post myself on the Participate blog about what happens next, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on things like so the conversation that came up in some of my Twitter feed over the last couple of days is talking about being afraid to go back, whether we should be afraid to go back when we get the chance to go back into the classrooms. What are we looking for? What should we be looking forward to? And what do you think about like the psyche of that kind of process of reintegrating yourself into a classroom?
Well, I really do think that the sooner that you just accept that things are never going to be the same, the quicker you're going to be able to adjust to what the new normal is. And, we don't even know when going back is going to be. My kids' school district yesterday sent out an email saying that as of right now, summer school's not happening. So unless things start changing, they're not even going to try to do it online. They're just not going to do it at all. Looking into the fall, I think it was the Ohio governor that said that he would be shocked if we went back in August or September. And so we don't even really know when going back is going to be. And there's definitely going to be shifts. We're going to have kids who loved the online learning and who loved the virtual learning and who might want to switch into some sort of virtual program or charter that schools have. And then we have the kids who are going to be so glad to get back that, they can't even stand it. Like they're just so excited. And, but it's definitely going to be an adjustment going back. I think especially for adults as we try to figure out, just kind of what our new normal is again. And so I guess, like I said, my thoughts are on it. The quicker that you can accept that it's not going to be the same, the quicker you can start adjusting to being ready to how it's going to be.
So we like speaking to you about mental health. And I'm thinking about mental health, not only of our students, because we've talked about that quite a bit on the show, but us, educators, people, we're at home with our kids, our spouses, 24/7. And in my case, I even have my in-laws here.
Pack
And
house.
it puts this
Wow.
stress that's very unique,
Yeah.
And I think the reason why it's unique is because normally you'd be able to get away. You'd be able to go ahead and say, we're, in 5 days from now, we're going to go do X, Y, and Z, or I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this. And I think that also keeps relationships healthy, being able to get away, those types of things.
Sure.
But then we have these work demands, right? And so we are educating from home. We're doing this distance learning thing, and Mike and I have talked about it. What is it like? What is it, And what I have heard a lot of our educators talking about is like they don't know, and because none of us were prepared for this, except for people like Mike, who actually has done some work from home. How do you separate your work and home life, and how do you make those two things work? And I've seen these kind of neat little schedules. Someone put together this schedule for their kids, and it's like 1 hour of project-based learning and 1 hour of being creative, and then we're going to put together things for 35 minutes, and then we're going to go outside for an hour of physical activity or whatever it might
Glenn
be.
is subtweeting.
And I saw that, and I'm just like, that's so much BS, because I at least I don't live in that perfect world where I can just plug my kids into those situations, or plug myself even. It's hard for me to, kind of do those, to say, hey, I'm going to do this routine. Work is part of the routine. For me now, I've started figuring that out. Is like, you wake up, you understand that you're going to go to this place to do this thing called work, and you're going to devote yourself to that. But when you come home, then you can kind of separate those things. I think it's causing kind of this new mental health issues for people, relationship issues. And how do we separate these two things? And then what kind of suggestions do you have so that we can, deal with this? Like you just said, this is the new normal. We're in these homes together for these long extended periods of time. What are some suggestions you have? Because I'm sure you've heard other people with that, or even yourself, you're experiencing that too, Mandy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of had a little bit of a background in pieces of this before this whole thing started. Like, one of the things, and I had spoken to you guys before, that I did was I left the district and I had to figure out how to work from home. And I was shocked at myself and how completely incompetent I was at first at figuring my life out. Like it really is. It should not have been as hard as it was. And I would go, I'd say to myself, well, I need to create a schedule and I need to stick to a routine. So I would, set my alarm for like 6 o'clock, and I'd be ready to get up, and then I'd hit snooze, and I'd hit snooze again because I'd have to get up, and then I'd be up a half an hour late. I'm like, I've already blown my routine, so maybe I'll just sit on the couch for a little while. It was god awful. And so I wasn't getting anything done and really had to figure out what working at home meant for me. And it meant that I'm actually not a morning person. Like, I don't like to work right away in the morning. I'm better if I sit and read or something like that and get something more, quiet and more, kind of solidary type work done on my own, and then work with people a little later. But I had to figure all of that out. And so I understand from the standpoint of trying to figure out how to work from home, how to balance family. I still have 4 kids and they're a little bit older, so that makes it easier, but I still have them, and trying to balance them, and then trying to balance when does work end when people are still contacting you at 8 o'clock at night. And so I had taken that experience kind of coupled with the fact that I've been working with districts on moving them towards virtual programs or virtual charter schools. Like, that's been what I've been doing as part of my consulting. And when I work with districts on that, one of the most important conversations that I have with them is understanding the mental health aspect of being at home. And from the standpoint of just starting a virtual program, there are challenges that students may who are at first taking a virtual program might think that it feels amazing to be able to work from home until the loneliness and the isolation set in. And then they're like, oh,
so true.
This isn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be. And, and the same thing happens with adults. Like we're like, people will say to me all the time, oh my gosh, you are so fortunate you work at home and that must be the best experience ever. And I am super, super fortunate for what I do, but there are definite challenges too. I have to seek out adult conversation and, I have to intentionally create situations where I get to be social and be around people, or I don't get that at all. And no matter how introverted you are, you do need that interaction. It's how we process emotions. It's how we, some of us, I'm a big processor out loud, so I need to process ideas with people. And when I'm home alone, I'm missing that. Another thing that you kind of mentioned, Glenn, is the specific situation we're in now. And, some of us are teachers and possibly other workers if we're doing any other kind of work or helping a spouse or something like that. We are parents, sometimes like fur baby parents, like we're doing all the things right now and we're not meant to do all those things.
Yeah.
And when you say, my friend Melody McAllister, she's got 5 little kids and her husband are both working from home right now. And if I ever said self-care to her, she would laugh in my face. Like, you've got to be kidding me. How is self-care fitting in here? Like self-care is my bottle of wine that I've got sitting on the cupboard. Like, that's my self-care right now.
That's it.
That's it.
That's so true.
But the fact of the matter is that you do have to make time for yourself. Who knows, maybe that's switching off with a spouse and making sure each of you are getting at least a half an hour to yourself. I know that when my kids were little, I used to lock myself in the bathroom and they would still pound on the door, but at least I got that alone time for just a little while. Like, we all did that, right? Tell me we all did that. But it's that kind of stuff is really
5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes, 5 more minutes. But that kind of stuff is going to be super important as we work through all of the demands that we're trying to take on right now, which are it's just not possible to do it all.
Well, and you're a wonderful writer, and I love almost everything you have written, and I love when you share it with me so that I can make sure I read it. And so I read one of your blog posts the other day, and it dovetails very nicely into what you just said a little bit. And you wrote this: however, this time we have is unprecedented time to spend with our families that we don't normally have and may never get again. I feel like the universe has been flashing the yield sign, and when we didn't, it decided to do it for us, something to make us look at each other again in the eyes and remember who we are as individuals, families, and communities. Time to be still, recalibrate, to do the little things that we haven't done because we've been so busy that we forgot we even enjoyed it. Love that. And, it's so hard, like you said, to tell Melody to take some time to recalibrate. And she's like, yo, you can take one of my kids if you want me to recalibrate. I get it.
Or all 5.
But, right. But, we need this a little bit, and I'm seeing it in myself, especially right now. Like I started a new job, just before they locked all the airports down. I got home, from North Carolina, and and then they closed the schools, and everyone's home, and then Cheryl has to figure out how to teach kindergarten online. Who does that?
Right.
But, we've still tried to find, like, I've loved taking walks. And I was never a taking walk guy. I'm not a let's go take a walk type of person. But I found that I was even like the other day, I had like a free 45 minutes. And I'm like, let's go for a walk. I was volunteering. Like, that's how you know where we've come to, where I'm the guy saying, okay, let's all get shoes. I have 45 minutes where I have no meetings. Let's go for a walk. And so all four of us go for a walk. And I'm wondering, I guess, and I don't actually, I wouldn't mind asking both of you, what are we doing? What are you doing right now to kind of fulfill this idea, this time that you have to spend maybe a little more time appreciating your family, despite the situations that we're finding ourselves in, and or time to reflect or think about what you're doing in your work or your life? What have you been trying to do to make that a reality? Mandy?
Yeah, well, I do think that, trying to think positive amidst these kinds of circumstances, as hard as it can seem sometimes, is really, it really is super important. When, just when you talk about the brain, the things that we do most are the things that our brain is going to want to continue to do. So if we continue to think negatively and complain, our brain is going to continue to do that. If we start to feel, start to think more positively and practice gratitude, our brain is going to rewire and it's going to start to do that. And so, I think there are things that we can find that feel more positive in the midst of this. I got to put a puzzle together with my daughter at one point, and my one of my sons is still up in college, but the other one got to come home. We got to spend almost an entire semester with him and the whole summer. And there have been a lot of really sad things that have happened, but I really do believe that, kind of what I said about the universe flashing the yield sign. Like, I feel like we were going 1,000,000 miles an hour and we weren't stopping. And so whoever you believe handles that kind of stuff was like, hey, now enough is enough. I've warned you and it's not working. So I'm going to do something about it. And when you think about the significance of the pandemic and what's happened, I've heard people compare it to 9/11, and it does feel very 9/11-esque, except that was just the United States. And we actually have this very strange connection around the world with people right now who are all experiencing the same thing. And it's forced everybody to slow down. And I think we can take advantage of that by looking at the people around us and going, wow, hey, I can't remember the last time I stopped and looked at you in the eyes, and actually noticed you and had a conversation where I stopped what I was doing and talked to you. And I think that can be a really powerful way to, kind of take some of that positivity out of the situation.
And I would say for myself, some similar things, things that I would say I didn't do very often, I'm doing very often now. Even things as they would seem kind of like things you should be doing as a father, shooting basketball with your kid every day. It wasn't something I was doing every day. I might have done it once on the weekend, once every couple of weeks or something like that, where now you are spending significant amount of times playing pretend, drawing things, playing Legos, doing some things where you were like in just the recent past, you were saying, I don't have time to be able to do this, and this because I have to do all of this other things, So you can kind of put those things aside. I have found just looking around in my neighborhood, more connections between parents and their kids than I've ever seen. And we live in this suburbia, basically. That's the best way to be able to describe it. It is the antithesis of where I thought I would ever live. But as we moved here, and we moved here in early August, beautiful days in Minnesota, and we went and we set up our basketball goal, and we were outside shooting. We were riding bikes around the neighborhood, and we noticed nobody was out. Nobody was doing anything outside ever. Like we didn't even, we're like, there has to be kids here somewhere. The exact opposite is the case now. And as Mandy was describing, the weather has been horrible, but that doesn't matter. People are outside and they're walking their dogs, they're riding bikes, they're shooting baskets, but they're with their kids. They're not just by themselves. So I can kind of see exactly what you're describing there, Mandy. It's like this, it's a phenomenon, I think, which for a positive, something positive we can take all from this. And if you were describing, Mike, well, how, looking forward, those kinds of things, this is one of those things that's kind of indescribable that we can actually take from this. It has nothing to do with online teaching or how we do this or whatever it might be. We all know those are the types of things that we're going to have those conversations about. It's just about like, how do we treat each other and what kind of time and effort do we spend with the people that we love, versus the things that keep us busy. And I have found that even in just this, and it's just been a really short period of time. If you guys think about this, it feels like it's been forever. It has felt like forever for me. Like this has felt like a new lifetime, like a lifetime
of our lives.
Like a different life. This is because I remember that previous life when I was with you guys in Florida. We're
not long ago.
I know, but it feels like it's like
Crazy.
Was years ago. And then now we've been in this kind of thing. It hasn't been really that long, but it has felt like a significant shift has happened. And in this case, for the positives.
I actually hope that it's something that doesn't go away. That feeling of being appreciative of our family, even if they're driving us nuts sometimes. I know a friend of mine put out on, absolutely. A friend of mine put out on Facebook the other day, so are you married during the pandemic? And if so, how's that going? Kind of, you can only be together for so long. But that feeling gratitude towards the people that you're with or the people that you can't see right now. I had put a tweet out on Twitter a few weeks ago, or a week ago or something. I have no idea what time or day it is. And it said something like, what's something from from pre-pandemic that you miss and you can't wait to do again? And a lot of people said, hug my grandkids, hug my college student, hug, somebody that they love that they can't be with right now. And that's something that I hope doesn't go away, that we remember how awful it is to be without these people in our lives, that we can be appreciative of having them post-pandemic.
Tell our audience a little bit about this new book that you're writing or that you wrote, Reignite the Flames. I everything that I've read about from you has to do with a lot of fire, and which kind of fits your personality anyway. I think it fits perfectly. So this is Reigniting the Flames. Yes. So tell us a little bit about
stick with the fire theme.
Yes.
Fire theme is kind of throughout all three of them. I couldn't help it. I actually thought about going with water, but the fire just made more sense. So I went with that. So Reignite the Flames is probably, honestly, The Fire Within's my favorite book. Reignite the Flames is definitely challenging that one. It's taken all of the research I've done, all of the, kind of blabbering I've gone on about teacher engagement, and puts it all together, and really discusses, what teacher engagement and disengagement is, the mental health aspect that I've been talking about for a couple of years, as far as what causes disengagement. Some of that is mental health. And so it goes through personal adversity, professional adversity, burnout, demoralization, secondary traumatic stress, and teacher trauma. Teacher trauma is probably the most, the one that I've added in the most recently as a reason to disengage. And that's defined as things like active shooter drills, a student passing away in your own classroom, a student becoming violent and physically or verbally assaulting you. So that would be one of those things that was kind of added in recently. And so it talks about the reasons for disengagement, and then goes through what happens to your body under stress, what your brain and actually happens in your brain and in your body during times of, whether it's just like chronic stress or high stress. And then we kind of flips on the other side and starts talking about what positivity and gratitude do to your brain and body, and then how you can re-engage if you have become disengaged. And so it really is, talks a lot about just the different ways that you become disengaged. And one of the reasons I'm super passionate about it is because I hear a lot of people talking about burnout, which I think is great. And I think a lot of people, go through a period of, I think some burnout in our profession is natural every year, particularly around Farch, like February and March, when it just
agreed.
Everything just stinks. And so, we kind of
just to play the play on words to its natural conclusion, I guess, right?
Right.
We understood.
We'll just let that one go. But so a lot of people talk about burnout, but the fact of the matter is that there are a lot of different reasons that you can disengage. And so I usually give the example of, if you are burnt out, one of the ways to heal is to kind of pull back, right? Like stop doing as much as you're doing. But if you're demoralized, which can look a lot like burnout, if you're demoralized, the way that you heal is actually to dig into what your identity is as an educator and start working towards like passion projects and stuff like that. So it's not pulling back. So if you're constantly saying that everything is burnout, it's possible you're not healing from the thing you actually need to heal from. And so I've been, kind of passionate about making sure all of those areas are understood.
That's really interesting.
Yes, it is.
We could talk all the time. I love that you're one of the people we hang out with all the time at conferences and stuff, because you say so many fascinating things that I could just spend a half an hour just talking about that one thing. So that's really fascinating. We tend to leave people with one last question. I would love to know, and this would be great for the people listening too. What are 3 pieces of media that can be a video, a podcast, a book, something you're reading, some sort of piece of media that you've consumed recently that has made you think or inspired you, framed the way you're thinking right now? Why don't you share 3 of those? We'd love to hear what you've been reading or looking up or listening to.
Sure. Well, oh my gosh, a lot of what I've been reading and listening to and researching has really been to do with the book, because I've been, finishing that up. And so, I'll kind of be around some of the same things. One of the books that, I really love is called Purposeful Hustle, and it's by Deanna Singh. And it is, about how you not only find your purpose, but really live within that purpose. And, make decisions based on what you feel your purpose is. And so, I've been reading that lately. I've also been I finished reading Demoralized, by, I'll have to look it up. Doris Santoro, I think it is. And that book is, completely on demoralization in the education profession. There's a lot of, stories in there of teachers becoming demoralized and what that looks like and what they say and how you can re-engage. And that book has been a huge part of some of my demoralization research. And then finally, the other book that I dug out and I've been reading lately is called Left Behind. It's the story of the I'm almost embarrassed I'm reading this right now during the pandemic, but it's the story of when everybody gets brought back to heaven during the rapture.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
I was like, is there
like I
more
said,
than one? Like, is there more than one Left Behind book? Like you saw on camera. I did like a dog head tilt because I'm like, wait for it.
Yeah, so I
won't
read
lie.
the series
I won't
years
lie.
ago.
It's an incredibly well written book.
It's super interesting, so I'm not particularly religious. And I mean, I have some beliefs, but to say I'm like straight Catholic or Christian, I'm not. And, but I find that belief system fascinating. And so I loved the books when I first read them. I'm loving it the second time that I'm reading them, but there was just something that said to me, you should rebuy this book and you should read it again. And I'm like, I can't tell people that because it sounds so weird, but it's true.
So how can people contact you, Mandy? How can people get a hold of you? Twitter, social media? Go ahead and give your information out.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at www.mandyfroehlich.com, and actually www.divergentedu.com will get you to the same place. It's easier to spell than my last name. At Froehlich M will get you, will help you find me on Twitter, and then Mandy Froehlich on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Very good. Mandy Froehlich, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. You guys are my favorite. I love being on this podcast.
Thanks for listening to On Education. My name is Glenn Irvin. My co-host is Mike Washburn. On Education is part of the On Podcast Media Network. You can listen to this show and many others by great educators like Monica Burns, Mike Matera, Tisha Richmond, and many more by visiting onpodcastmedia.com. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website at oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at OnEducationPod. Mike is at Mr. Washburn on Twitter, and I can be found on Twitter at IrvSpanish. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/OnEducationPod. We're also on Instagram at OnEducationPod. Want to support On Education? Visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/OnEducation. There, you can get access to full videos of the podcast and so much more. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or a review in Apple Podcasts or the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. It helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Classcraft, for supporting us. Check out classcraft.com/oneducation to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening. Stay awesome and see you soon.